The Firm, India's only show on corporate law, tax and audit matters.
Hello and welcome to The Firm. It's a special show this week as The Firm travels to Andhra Pradesh to find out more about India's most ambitious land pooling scheme. Now, since the bifurcation of the erstwhile state of Andhra Pradesh, Hyderabad has been a shared capital for both the new Andhra Pradesh and the new Telangana. They will share Hyderabad for 10 years, after which the Andhra Pradesh government will have to move to a new capital city. That new city, Amravati, is being built on over 30,000 acres of farmland. The Andhra government has not acquired this farmland. It has instead launched a land pooling scheme. This may not be the first time that land pooling has been tried in India, but it surely is the most ambitious such effort. Aayush Ailawadi visits Amravati to find out if it will work.
This is where our journey begins. We're on our way from Hyderabad to Vijayawada, where the Andhra Pradesh government plans to build a capital city from scratch using an innovative tool called land pooling. Is this land pooling experiment working out for them? Well, let's find out.
300 kilometers from Hyderabad, in the middle of one of India's most fertile rice bowls, will soon be born the city of Amravati. Located between the towns of Vijayawada and Guntur, Amravati will occupy 54,000 acres. That will over 10 years house Andhra Pradesh's Secretariat, the High Court, the Legislative Assembly and other key structures. It will also be home to 30 lakh people. Of that 54,000 acres, nearly 21,000 acres is already owned by the government. The remaining is owned by over 23,000 farmers across 29 villages. Acquiring the land would have cost the Andhra Pradesh government more than 7,500 crore rupees and would take several years. Add to that rehabilitation and resettlement requirements to be fulfilled under the Land Act 2013. So, in December last year, the Andhra Pradesh government announced a land pooling scheme. That same month, it enacted the Capital Region Development Authority Act, under which it created the Capital Region Development Authority. The CRDA's first Development Commissioner N. Srikanth is in charge of building Amravati. He tells me that no other state has ever experimented with land pooling on such a large scale.
Mr. Srikanth, why did the Andhra Pradesh government decide to use land pooling as a tool to build the capital city?
The government wanted to make the landowners and those living in that area stakeholders in the entire process of development. The moment government announces a capital city, the land prices there are going to increase in value, and that increased value should be shared with the people who have been residing there. So, a Land Acquisition Act is a one-sided act in the sense that there is nothing that is shared with the people who were protecting or enjoying the land till that point of time. And it's not a win-win kind of a situation. If you give cash, it may not last for long. But whereas if you make them stakeholders in the development process, then there is likely to be more, the chance of success is more for any project that you take up.
Under the Andhra Pradesh Capital City Land Pooling Scheme, landowners voluntarily transfer ownership of their land to the Capital Region Development Authority. The CRDA develops the land by building the necessary infrastructure like roads, electricity connections and sewage lines. After 10 years, once the land is developed, the CRDA will return approximately a third of the land to the landowner. So for instance, if a farmer was to give up 1 acre or 4,840 square yards of dry land for pooling, in 10 years he'd get 1,000 square yards of residential land and 250 square yards of commercial land. By then, the land would be more valuable due to the surrounding development. During the 10 years, the farmer would get an annual payment of 30,000 rupees with an annual increase of 3,000 rupees. He would also get skill training and be entitled to a loan waiver of up to 1.5 lakh rupees. landless labourers will be compensated with 2,500 rupees every month. The government claims the land pooling scheme has already attracted 31,000 acres.
Is this land pooling scheme backed by any law, sir? Is there any state or central law which enables this scheme?
We have studied certain laws from the existing town planning scheme, as well as various urban planning schemes elsewhere in the country like Gujarat, Maharashtra, Tamil Nadu, then Chhattisgarh, as well as Andhra Pradesh. Based on all these experiences, as well as certain other legislations elsewhere in the world, in other democratic countries, we have realized that this is possible, and special legislation was created for the purpose of pooling the land.
Hypothetically speaking, Mr. Srikanth, what if this project takes much longer than 10 years, maybe 15, 20, 30 years? What legal remedies do the farmers have in that case?
There is no other choice for the state government. Once the decision is taken that the capital city will be located there, and the entire master plan which is being prepared now will be notified, and under law the cabinet, as per the cabinet resolution and assembly resolution, the secretariat, the high court, legislative assembly, everything will move there, just as it had happened in let's say Naya Raipur or Gandhinagar or elsewhere in the country. It has to move, so there is no way that this can get delayed, and the government already has indicated that 2018 would be the deadline for moving the government there.
We're looking at 33,000 acres of highly fertile land on the banks of River Krishna. This is where the Andhra Pradesh government plans to build a capital city from scratch. So let's head to the fields to find out what the farmers really think of the government's plans.
The village of Mandadam is located close to the proposed centre of the capital city. I found out that most farmers here belong to the same caste as the Chief Minister and are die-hard Naidu fans. I also found out that they unanimously supported the land pooling scheme.
I have given up 24 acres of land for pooling. I expect Chief Minister Naidu will be in power for 10 years, and so Amravati will be developed in 10 years' time. Naidu has thanked us for cooperating, and we have all chosen to voluntarily give up our land for pooling.
Our next stop, Thulur, is a village at the very heart of the proposed capital city. Not only do most farmers here support the land pooling scheme, but some of them are also using the prospective development to cash out.
Rambabuji, what exactly does this sale deed tell us?
I owned 1 acre of land in the capital city. Because prices went up, I sold it for 1.6 crore rupees. And I bought land 7 kilometers away for 1.4 crore rupees. So I've made a profit of 20 lakh rupees. I'm happy as I'm still a landowner, and now I have extra money too.
I had 4 acres of land. I sold 1 acre and I have given 3 acres to the land pooling scheme, as I trust Chandrababu Naidu and I wanted the annuity.
But not far from Thulur, in the village of Penumaka, most farmers belong to the Reddy caste. Many here are opposing the land pooling scheme. 35-year-old Srinivas Reddy owns 1.2 acres of multi-crop fertile land on the banks of the Krishna river. But he's being offered the same terms as those from other villages. And so he believes the government has undervalued his land, and also that the annuity is insufficient to support his family. Reddy and a few more villagers have moved the High Court to block the pooling scheme.
The Land Pooling Act is illegal. They are saying that we must try land pooling. They are taking the land from us as per the law, but they are only giving us verbal promises and not giving it to us in writing.
Earlier, when I spoke to the CRDA Commissioner, he said that the government was talking to the dissatisfied farmers.
So there is a small pocket of contiguous land where the land values were very high. So probably we may have to enter into a dialogue with them, and then a solution will come up, obviously.
The villagers I meet in Penumaka are awaiting Prime Minister Modi's visit on October 22nd to lay the foundation stone of Amravati. They hope to request him to exclude their village from the capital city's development plans.
प्रधानी जी का मैं मानवी कर रहा हूँ. प्रधानी जी एक बार वो गरीब आदमी का लैंड लेने को किसी को इंडिया में गवर्नमेंट का आप हुकुम जारी जाओ, ये लैंड छोटा गरीब आदमी का लैंड लेने को जरूरत नहीं है. आप बिजनेस करने वाला है वो लैंड परचेस कर सकते हैं और जरूरत है तो लैंड ड्राई लैंड बहुत है. ये मल्टी क्रॉप लैंड का प्रधानी जी आप देखो आपका काम है, ये भगवान का गिफ्ट है जी. आप लैंड नको ले लो जी.
Naresh is also concerned about the lack of adequate compensation for landless labourers.
इधर जमीन का कूली है ना, एक दिन का उसका एक महीना में उसका इनकम 20,000 आ सकता उसका फैमिली का, वो गवर्नमेंट दे रहा है 2,500 दे रहा है. उसका हस्बैंड एंड चिल्ड्रन वाइफ वो 3 आदमी का 20,000 आ सकता. उसका बच्चे भी कारपोरेट स्कूल में पढ़ रहा है. उसका जिंदगी भी अच्छा है.
That's another concern. Many coolies or landless labourers are unhappy with the 2,500 rupees a month pension that the scheme offers them.
I earn 300 rupees a day. That's 9,000 rupees a month. This government is only giving us 2,500 rupees per month as pension, and that won't be sufficient for us. How will we pay for our house rent and children's education? My husband and I work long hours, but if these fields are taken away, what will we be left with? What about us? This is the only job we know how to do.
If some farmers and labourers are concerned about the undervaluation of land and insufficient pension, land policy experts and lawyers are worried about the very legality of the land pooling scheme. After this break, I'll see you in the Indian School of Business with Professor Ashwini Chhatre.
My sense is that there is no legal backing except the law of contract.
Welcome back, you're watching The Firm. So in the 2 days that we traveled through the capital region of Andhra Pradesh, we found out that 90% of the farmers were delighted with the state's land pooling scheme. But experts have some concerns. So we've driven down to Hyderabad, and our first stop here is at the Indian School of Business, where we speak to the experts to find out what they have to say.
Professor Ashwini Chhatre teaches economics and public policy at ISB. He spent 11 years working with local communities and social movements on democratic governance of natural resources in India and has also studied the state government's land pooling experiment very closely. He tells me that landless labourers would be the worst affected by such a scheme.
A significant proportion, and I'm not exactly aware of how much, but a significant, I would make a guess 30%, are landless people. So if you assume that land prices are going to increase 10 times, 20 times, which is a reasonable assumption in these situations, the benefits are going to be very regressively distributed. So the landless people will get some skill training, some annuity, 2,500 or whatever that increases 10% per month. The landowners are going to get a lot, and the 1 acre landowner is going to get a lot less than the 10 acre landowner. So you are actually increasing inequality in the system, and it's basically inequality breeds more inequality.
Rising inequality is one concern, but the bigger concern Professor Chhatre has is that the land pooling scheme has a very weak legal foundation.
My sense is that there is no legal backing except the law of contract. In this country, I think in most countries, the law of contract is based on jurisprudence. It's based on what courts have done previously. The lack of precedent will become a major impediment. So whatever decisions are taken will have to be taken on the basis of whatever the case material is, not on the basis of what has come before in law. Law of contracts has proved to be really difficult to implement in land or land conflict. I'm not sure how much of this 33,000 acres is jointly held. So if land titles are jointly held, then the power of attorney is very hazy in law. This is who has the power of attorney, and is it cumulative, is it collective, or even if there is a recourse to a dispute process. The experiment itself does not assign any responsibility to the government or liability in case of a dispute. It's all going to the courts. So far it's all looking good, but the legal foundations are weak.
Advocate at the Andhra Pradesh High Court, CVR Rudra Prasad, shares the same worry. He points out that both the land pooling scheme and the CRDA Act do not have adequate safeguards for farmers in case of disputes. For instance, if an ownership dispute arises, the farmer has recourse only to a writ court.
No, there is no legal remedy provided under the Act to the farmer. As a result, if the state failed to comply with the conditions of the development agreement, the only recourse to you is challenge their inaction by way of approaching the High Court, because there is no other mechanism provided. The Act says the decision taken by the competent authority or the commissioner is final and it shall not be challenged. Unlike the other enactments, there is no appeal provided or an arbitration provided. For example, under the National Highway Authorities of India Act, an arbitration mechanism is provided. Under the Land Acquisition Act, you have right of appeal, or you can ask for reference to the civil court. In this Act, there is no such provision. So as a result, the landowners are the sufferers.
Rudra Prasad also says that the land pooling scheme is discriminatory and hence unconstitutional.
For example, some of the villages, the value of the land as per the government register is 1 or 2 lakhs per acre, whereas the value of the land abutting the river Krishna or near to Vijayawada or a town Amaravati or Mangalagiri, they are 10 to 15 lakhs as per the book value, whereas in the market value more than 1.5 crore to 2 crores is there. But the CRDA authority is seeking to give land in lieu of the land taken from the farmers on par with anybody. As a result, those whose lands are more value are getting less benefit than those who are giving at a lesser price. So there is a discrimination.
Both experts are wary about how the land pooling scheme attempts to sidestep the provisions of a far stricter central land law. The Land Act of 2013 says that the government acquisition of land requires the consent of 70 to 80% of the farmers. It also orders a social impact assessment and comprehensive rehabilitation and resettlement provisions. Although the Andhra Pradesh government's land pooling scheme does make farmers stakeholders in the development process, it has no such provisions.
One of the big things that the Land Acquisition Act, especially the 2013 one, brings in is the social impact assessment, which would have addressed the concerns of the landless and the tenants, who are going to benefit far less than the landowners. And there is no reason why you need the Land Acquisition Act in order to do a social impact assessment. It adds to the transparency of the process and it can still be done. Nothing is lost yet.
Having realized that it is practically not possible for the Andhra Pradesh government, with the funds they have or the finances they have, they cannot acquire the land in such a huge extent, vast extent of more than 30,000 acres. They have developed a method to acquire the land in other way in the name of land pooling scheme. If the entire enactment is made known to the landowners and the procedure being followed is made known to the landowners, according to me, most of them must not have parted with their land for this land pooling scheme.
Perhaps it's too early to judge whether this land pooling experiment has been successful or not. But one thing's for sure, from my experience over the last 3 days, the government has clearly succeeded in convincing most of the locals to give up their land to this particular scheme. Will the government keep its promise? And will this city come up in the next 10 years? Perhaps we'll have to come back in 2025 to find out. In Hyderabad, Aayush Ailawadi.
Can land pooling change the land debate in India? We hope you enjoyed that visit to Amravati and AP's ambitious land pooling scheme. With that, we're going to wrap it up here on The Firm. Thanks very much for watching. We'll see you next week.
The Firm, India's only show on corporate law, tax and audit matters.